Tom thought he was getting caught, so he threw this Brahmastra weapon. He shot it in an attempt to save his life. Thought it was his only opportunity at that point. So when Arjuna saw this, he became concerned, and Krishna told him, "Oh, this is what you got to do. You have to shoot your own Brahmastra, because Ashvatam, he wasn't as responsible as Arjuna, and Drona never really taught Ashvatthama how to do the Brahmastra properly, because he wasn't ready to use it. He knew that he wasn't capable of handling such a weapon, and he actually didn't know how to retract the weapon, because part of it is, channeling that energy, but the other part is, once the weapon has done its job, you have to also recall that, bring it back in. And so Ashvatthama didn't know how to do that, but Arjuna did. And so Krishna told him, you shoot your Brahmastra, and when the two fires merge, then you retract it, and then both of them will come back to you, and then everything will be saved. And so this is where we are now in the verses, where Arjuna is now, pulling in the heat of both of those Brahmastra weapons, all on the instructions of Krishna. So today's purport talks about how, these scientists and politicians, they think they're very powerful, and they like to exhibit their power in, blowing things up and creating weapons that can cause some mass destruction. And in this way, they just like to pretty much just flex their muscles to show that, they don't necessarily want to use them, but they want to show the world that they can use them and that nobody else should mess with them. That's basically what they do. But Srila Prabhupada points out here, and I love that he does this, because it's just downright brilliant, is that, these atomic bombs, we have them, they're quite powerful. They would wipe out a whole lot, but there's no way you can destroy the planet. Bhumi Devi is quite resilient. She's way more powerful than we are. If we think for a second that we have the power to destroy the planet, then we're fooling ourselves. So there's two things I want to talk about in this regard. And so the first thing I'll do, I'm going to read a passage from what's known as the Bhumi Gita in the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd chapter. Mother Bhumi sings this song. I'm just going to read the first about, 14 or so verses. Shukadeva Goswami said, "Seeing the kings of this earth busy trying to conquer her, the earth herself laughed. She said, 'Just see how these kings, who are actually playthings in the hands of death, are desiring to conquer me. Great rulers of men, even those who are learned, meet frustration and failure because of material lust. Driven by lust, these kings place great hope and faith in the dead lump of flesh called the body, even though the material frame is as fleeting as bubbles of foam on water. Kings and politicians imagine, first I will conquer my senses and mind, then I will subdue my chief ministers and rid myself of the thorn pricks of my advisors, citizens, friends, and relatives, as well as the keepers of my elephants. In this way, I will gradually conquer the entire earth. Because the hearts of these leaders are bound by great expectations, they fail to see death waiting nearby. After conquering all the land on my surface, these proud kings forcibly enter the ocean to conquer the sea itself. What is the use of their self-control, which is aimed at political exploitation? The actual goal of self-control is spiritual liberation. O best of the Kurus, the earth continued as follows. Although in the past, great men and their descendants have left me, departing from this world in the same helpless way they came into it, even today, foolish men are trying to conquer me. For the sake of conquering me, materialistic persons fight one another, Fathers oppose sons and brothers fight one another because their hearts are bound to possessing political power. Political leaders challenge one another. All this land is mine. It is not yours, you fool. Thus, they attack one another and die. Such kings as Prithu, Pururava, Gadi, Nahusha, Bharata, Katavirya, Arjuna, Mandata, Sagara, Rama, Katvanga, Dunduha, Raghu, Trinabindu, Yayati, Sharyati, Shantanu, Gaya, Bhagirata, Kuvalayasva, Kakuchta, Naishada, Nriga, Hiranyakashipu, Vrita, Ravana, who made the whole world lament, Namuchi, Sambara, Valma, Hiranyaksha, and Taraka, as well as many other demons and kings who possessed great powers of control over others, were all full of knowledge, heroic, all-conquering, and unconquerable. Nevertheless, O Almighty Lord, although they lived their lives intensely trying to possess me, these kings were subject to the passage of time, which reduced them all to mere historical accounts. None of them could permanently establish their rule. So just to take a small break here on that. So basically, this is in this section of Bhagavatam, it was being discussed the different kings, or actually emperors, not just kings, but emperors, those who ruled the entire world. And some of these families maintained the empire for several generations. So in effect, so one emperor would take control, and then he would pass it off to a worthy son, and then him to a worthy son, and then him to a worthy son. So some empires lasted several hundred years, right? And so you could say that that's pretty impressive, right? From our point of view, that's pretty impressive, an empire lasting several hundred years. But for Bhumi, she just laughs at all of this, and she's mentioning these great powerful kings. Like some of these kings, by the way, like our emperors, Hiranyakashipu, he was actually ruling the entire world. He defeated Chandra and Vayu and Indra. Everyone. He defeated everyone, and he took charge of the entire universe. Yeah, the demigods were in hiding. So, but even kings like that, they possess material bodies, and they're subject to time. And with that passage of time, they're just reduced to historical counts. No big deal. So, let alone Hiranyakashipu, who controlled the entire universe for a period of time, and did so by force, not just that he fell into it or inherited it. He went and actually fought for it and won. We have these so-called kings these days who can't conquer a thing. They can't even conquer their senses. All these kings listed here, actually, they learned self-control, and that's how they were able to rule an empire. But so, let alone being able to rule something or destroy something or control something, these wannabe kings, they can't do a thing. We think we're big, but we can't even accomplish anything. I'll read one more verse. Shukadeva Goswami said, "O mighty Parikshit, I have related to you the narrations of all these great kings who spread their fame throughout the world and then departed. My real purpose was to teach transcendental knowledge and renunciation. Stories of kings lend power and opulence to these narrations, but do not in themselves constitute the ultimate aspect of knowledge." Now, the reason I wanted to read that verse, and I'm going to read it one more time. And I'll read it one more time now. Shukadeva Goswami said, "O mighty Parikshit, I have revealed to you the narrations of all these great kings who spread their fame throughout the world and then departed. My real purpose was to teach transcendental knowledge and renunciation. Stories of kings lend power and opulence to these narrations, but do not in themselves constitute the ultimate aspect of knowledge. So Shukadeva Goswami is explaining that, as he's going through mentioning all these different kings, his reason for doing so wasn't to entice him in how to become a great king. Parikshit, he was already emperor, he knows, but his point was to show him how to be, a proper, the proper thing that one can learn from being an emperor is that we have to be knowledgeable and we also have to be renounced, because no matter how powerful we are in this material world, we're completely insignificant in the grand scheme of things, right? And so that's why these stories are brought up, these great, powerful kings, and then they last this small amount of time. So it doesn't matter who you are or what you do. You have a certain amount of time in this life. And if you can't accomplish becoming knowledgeable and renounced, then you basically your life was wasted. And then, well, you get another chance to try it out, of course, as many chances as you need. But the point is, we don't want to continue wasting our lives like this. So there's an extreme statement that can be made here from reading this purport about how, let me get to the sentence here. Basically, it's saying that not only the atomic bomb, it's not powerful enough to destroy material nature, but it ultimately rests in the supreme will of the Supreme Lord. So basically, an extreme statement can be made here that, and it just sounds extreme to us, some of us anyway, is that we cannot destroy this planet. Now, we hear people talking these days about how we are, in fact, destroying the planet. Now, this is a bit of rhetoric. We're not actually destroying the planet. We're certainly affecting our stay on this planet. What happens is Bhumi, she's a devotee, and she has a service to do, and she reciprocates. And so when the kings, when those in charge exploit her resources, then she withholds them. So we see in previous yugas, when the kings were more pious, that the mountains and the streams and the fields and the trees were all rich with valuable metals and gems and fruits and flowers and minerals. Everything that was needed was there, and you didn't have to work for it. You didn't have to look for it. It was all just there. There it was, right? And that's because people were pious, right? So the Lord reciprocates piety. When we become less pious and we start exploiting these things, we start taking more than we need so that we can make some sort of more profit. And we start thinking in this way instead of understanding that everything is being given to us. We see it as more of a, we have to take what we can get, In other words, we become less God-centric because when we see that things are given to us, that's God-centric. That's Krishna conscious. Krishna has everything and he's giving it to us. When we think we have to take what we need, then that's self-centric, self-conscious. We think that we are the doers of this, so we have to take what we need. So those who exploit, that take more than they need so that they can, keep it from others so that they can make more profit like that, to build up a demand for it and then, hike up a price like that. When that's done to Bhumi, she withholds things from us, right? And rightfully so. So although it may look like we are destroying the planet, and we, like I said, we certainly are affecting our stay on it. It's not helping us any. We cannot destroy the planet, right? Now, this statement can be taken in different ways, and I want to make sure we understand what it means and what it doesn't mean, and how we apply that. Because some people can use a statement like this and say, "Well, see, we can't destroy the planet. So, we don't have to worry about climate change. We don't have to worry about, being responsible with our garbage or anything like that. And, Krishna is ultimately in control. Someone who may have an attachment to that sort of lifestyle may grab a statement like that and sort of justify their own lack of desire to actually do anything to help, to help, reduce the burden that we're putting on the earth. And that's not what Krishna is saying. And more so, what we have to understand is, although we cannot destroy the planet, we are certainly to respect her and treat her with as much respect as possible. So we don't want to exploit her. We want to honor her, and thankfully take the bounty that she gives us and be grateful with that. And so we don't want to disrespect her by throwing garbage everywhere and this and that. Now, these of course are details, the things that we're talking about now. And the principle, as Shukadev Goswami mentioned when he was right after Bhumi sang her song, the principle is that when we read about all of these things, the details are there to lend opulence and power to the narrations, right? So that we can sort of see them in a way, we can see these stories in a way and understand them. It keeps our attention and we can see a context. But the true purpose, the real purpose, is to teach transcendental knowledge and renunciation, right? So as we go through Srimad Bhagavatam, these are things that we have to keep in mind. So one thing I want to talk about today is, so like I said, sometimes we can come up with these extreme statements, and we can come away with it in very different ways. And so what I want to talk about a little bit today before we go any further, because we have to learn how to be responsible. And one way to do that, I think, is to understand where we're coming from. And so the human has 4 defects, and they're just inherent in human nature. One of their defects is that they have imperfect senses. So, in other words, we can see something and think it's something else. Like, for example, my mother was here visiting the other day, and we were driving on the road, and I saw this little piece of black plastic that was blowing across the street, sort of tumbling. And my mother didn't see it when I did, but a few moments later, she saw it, and she panicked and slammed on her brakes and turned her wheel and gasped with great fear because she thought it was a small animal, right? And she didn't want to kill the poor thing. So imperfect senses, we've all done this before, where we think we see something and then later we realize, oh no, okay, no, that's something else. So we have imperfect senses. That's one of our defects. But even if we did have perfect senses, even if everything we looked at, we could perceive it for the exact thing that it was, another defect we have is that we are illusioned. We're under illusion. So if you think of truth as pure light, for example, or clarity, however you want to see it, each of us living entities has a plethora of these curtains that are between us and actual reality, actual truth. Because if everything were revealed to us, we couldn't handle it, honestly. And we're here in this material world because we want to feel like we are independent from the Supreme Lord. And there's no way to feel that we're independent from the Supreme Lord if we know the truth, if we actually see the truth, how much greater he is than we are. Then there's no chance of us, experiencing this. So we have various degrees of illusion. And as we engage in self-realization, this illusion slowly dissipates. It becomes drawn back, and then so we see things clearer and clearer. And so that's our second defect, that we're illusioned. But even if we had perfect senses, which we don't, even if we could perceive everything exactly how it is, and we were not illusioned, let's say that all of the curtains were just drawn back completely, right? Another defect we have is that we are prone to commit mistakes, right? So, sometimes we'll be doing some math in our head, and we'll forget to carry the one, or we think a 3 is actually a 5, or so many times we've all done it. Or we remember something wrong. We're remembering a number, but we actually remember it backwards, and so we're dialing the phone, and we actually we hit the wrong number by accident. Of course, we have programmed phone numbers now, so that's less likely. But typing it in initially, we commit mistakes. It happens, right, from time to time. I don't think anyone will say that they've never made a mistake, or that they even haven't made a mistake in the last week, right? So, but even if we didn't have imperfect senses, even if our senses were perfect and we had no illusion whatsoever that keeping us from any of reality, and we didn't commit any mistakes, even if all 3 of those didn't happen, we still have the 4th defect, which is the tendency to cheat, right? And so we humans, we become attached to things. And so even if we know that something is not good for us, if we have an attachment for it, we're going to do it anyway. One example is, let's say, I'll use this example. I was going to use one example. I'll use a different one. My father, for example, he smokes. He's a smoker, and he understands that it's bad for him. He's been in the hospital several times with various ailments that are smoking related. But it doesn't matter to him. He's too attached to it. So, in other words, downright, he understands it's bad for him, but he does it anyway. So this is what's called the tendency to cheat. We justify our actions in some other way, even though we know it's wrong. So even if we had perfect senses and we saw everything, nothing was kept from us, we weren't in any illusion whatsoever, and we weren't prone to commit any mistakes, we still have the tendency to cheat. So we still have all the cards on the table, but we're not going to admit it because we're attached in some way. So we can see that we have each of these. The examples I gave, you probably had all similar examples of your own of these 4 defects. And so the reason I bring this up now, these 4 defects, is when we come across a statement like this in Shastra about how humans, they cannot destroy the planet. It's impossible. And it's absolutely true. We cannot destroy the planet. Bhumi is way more powerful, and we're not powerful enough. But some people, like I said, with these 4 defects, may take a statement like this and say, "Oh, well, therefore, we don't have to bother. If everything happens by the will of Krishna, we never have to try to do anything. We can just kind of be lazy and do whatever we want. Sit at home, play video games, watch movies, watch sports, whatever drives us, right?" And so this is the reason why it's important that when we approach Shastra, we do it in a very specific way, because we have these 4 defects. We understand that. When we approach Shastra through the Guru, who has understood Shastra and who has realized it and who can impart that knowledge back onto us, that's a good first step. We have to do this through the Guru. And also we have to consult with other sadhus, other people who are on the spiritual path, who've had experiences with the things that we ourselves are struggling with, and so we can consult with them, and they may be struggling with something that we've conquered in the past, or we've had success with anyway, and so we can share our realizations on that. And so this is how Shastra has to be approached. It shouldn't be approached in a way where we have some personal motivation, and we're trying to sort of prove that we are right. This is the thing with the tendency to cheat, is that we're more concerned with being perceived as being right than we are to finding out what is actually right. When you see two people arguing, a lot of times they don't even care what the right answer is. They just care who is right. They just want to be on top. They just want someone to admit that they're the ones that's right. They don't care that they're absolutely wrong. And so I'm going to start winding this down because we're getting low on time. But basically, in this world, and what this verse is showing us is that we refuse to acknowledge our insignificance. That's what we do in this material world. We're here, and we are quite insignificant, as we found from Bhumi. If Hiranyakashipu was insignificant, then how insignificant are we, right? But we refuse to acknowledge this. So when we refuse to acknowledge our insignificance, we think we're so powerful. And other beings like Mother Bhumi, they just laugh, right? And so there are three things that I want, that I'm hoping that we can all take away from today's class. And I'm just going to list those now after I take a little water here. And I again apologize for not having the camera today. So the three things that I'm hoping, that I hoped to come across today. Whereas we should be less concerned with who is right and more concerned with what is right. Anytime we're looking into a situation, a problem, an argument, something that's questionable, anything in Shastra, we should always be less concerned about who is right about something, more concerned about what is right, right? We want to understand what is right, because that's what Krishna is showing us. Krishna doesn't care who is right. He's showing us what is right, right? The second thing I wanted to convey is that we have to focus not on the details of a situation, but on the underlying principle. And I say that a lot, but this is really what Krishna consciousness is. And this is, like when we were reading Bhumi Gita, and Shukadev Goswami was mentioning how, he talks about these details to provide a little more, power and glory to these stories. But really the underlying principle was knowledge and renunciation, right? So when we go and we look at Shastra, and sure, there's going to be all sorts of these details there, and they're going to be glorious, and they're going to be nice and entertaining. But we should always focus on what is the underlying principle, because in every verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, it's teaching us to become knowledgeable and detached from the material world, to gain knowledge and to become less attached to this material world. Each verse will do that for us if we know how to look for it. So always focus on that underlying principle. Don't worry about those details. And then the third thing that I hope we can understand from today's verse is that we have to embrace our insignificance and put it to good use. So there's nothing wrong with being insignificant if we are actually insignificant. We're small sparks of the whole. Krishna is everything, and we are in infinitesimally small sparks of him. So although we have some power, we are spirit soul. We certainly have some power that's undeniable. But in the grand scheme of things, we are insignificant. But the beauty of that is the last week or 2 weeks ago, we were talking about the concept of surrender, and how for some of us that's a bad word because it means that we have to accept defeat, right? And so when I said embrace your insignificance, that might also put some sort of bitter taste in people's mouths. No, I'm not insignificant. Come on. But in the material world, we absolutely are insignificant. And no matter how much effort we put into acquiring, as much as possible and building empires, it's all utterly um, insignificant. In the grand scheme of things, Mother Bhumi is just laughing at all the things that we're trying to accomplish. We can't accomplish anything in the material world, but the beauty of this situation is we can accomplish so much if we just understand what we are. We are spirit soul. We are part and parcel of Krishna. And we are in our elements when we are serving him. And not in a negative way, not in a, okay, I understand you're more powerful than me. I will surrender unto you because I have no choice. No, not like that. It's it's that we actually understand what the relationship is. We remember it. We see that, oh, how foolish have I been? I was trying to, like sometimes a little child will want to imitate a parent, and they'll try to do something that a parent can do with ease, and obviously they can't do it, and they're like, oh yeah, and they feel foolish. And in a similar way, not in the exact same way, obviously, because children then grow up and then can do what their parents do, whereas we don't grow up and become God. But we can see that that we're not we don't have the potency to do what Krishna does, and that's part of why I said embrace our insignificance, because part of that is to understanding that it's a good thing that we're not in control, because if we were in control, there would be so many problems that were happening, right? Not just the problems that we have now. There'd be so many more problems because we couldn't control this at all. So I guess what I'll do is I'll stop there and see if there are any questions or comments or additions. And again, I apologize for the video not being up today and for my voice not being as loud as usual. Hopefully that didn't take anything away. Anyone? Sorry, maybe I didn't have enough energy today.
No, you did, Prabhu. It was a very nice class. I liked where you took it, from the verse and the purport that was given. I think it's very practical for us. So I have a question with regards to as aspiring devotees, what is our obligation as far as caring for Mother Earth? What should our consciousness be, specifically in terms of some of the more practical ways that are put before us in society with regards to caring for Earth? Be it recycling, using materials that are kind of earth friendly, that have either biodegradable or reusable. What would you say regarding that?
That's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it, because I actually was going to talk a little more on that, but I didn't. No, that's an important question. And sorry, I just have to adjust here. So the most important part before I start talking, or actually, no, I won't do that first. So first I'll say this. So as you know, I spent a year living in the woods without electricity or anything gas powered, and I was studying Chaitanya Lila. And so there were some people who were under the impression that part of the reason I was doing that was to reduce my carbon footprint, right? So because then I wasn't using any fossil fuels or anything like that. I was riding a bicycle, and so some devotees thought, oh, that's great. You're doing something for the environment. You're reducing your carbon footprint, and and that's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing to reduce your carbon footprint, but that wasn't the purpose. And so, if that is our purpose, in other words, if that is our consciousness, that we do these things for that reason, it's not the right reason. If we're doing these things because we know that Bhumi is, personality, and that Krishna doesn't want us to disrespect her, and so we do it that way, then is what it is it's a happy side effect that we're using less fossil fuels and things like that. So it's not that we can just across the board make policies that should be applied everywhere of what exactly everyone should be doing. Ideally, you're living in a village and you're eating off of leaf plates, so everything's being recycled, and you're drinking out of clay cups and that's being recycled. And, ideally there's just no waste. But, people have jobs, people need, for their jobs, they, require computers. Computers have all sorts of silicone-based stuff, and, they have a high carbon footprint and this and that. So it's not necessarily, in other words, we should focus less on the amount of damage that we're doing to the planet, focus more on what our service is to Krishna. Because if we are focusing on what our service is to Krishna, we will automatically make decisions that are going to be better for the planet, right? But if we try to arbitrarily make policies that go across the board, what you're going to do is people are going to fight it, because, and there's good reason why some people would fight it. There are things that are just downright good common sense. There's no point in putting something that's in a plastic container that has a handle on it inside of two more plastic bags. There's just no need for that. That's just downright, who would think that that's the thing to do, right? It doesn't make any sense. But you can even take it further back and say, well, you didn't even need that plastic container with the handle. You could have brought your metal container right to the farm and you wash that. So there's always things that you can do and you can do better. So the important thing for me is that, each community should have some regulations that they can agree on, that are comfortable, that they're comfortable with, and that ultimately are, that they can ultimately get better and better at it. But the focus shouldn't be on that. It should definitely be on, this is how we serve Krishna the best way. We shouldn't be, doing it so we can call ourselves the least carbon output temple on the planet, or whatever the case may be. So we should be conscious of it, but it shouldn't be our consciousness. We shouldn't be I lost the word I was going to put there. Anyway, we shouldn't lose focus of what the important thing is, Krishna consciousness, in doing these smaller details. But we also shouldn't ignore those details and try to say, oh no, sorry, we're just being practical, we're just being Krishna conscious. And then meanwhile, we're, dumping motor oil out on the, telephone pole or something like that. No, we have to become conscious. So there's this delicate balance in this mix of, because you have people who, they don't really want to understand it. And so they just throw up their Yukta Vairagya flag, right? And they're saying, whatever, we're just doing everything for Krishna. But then you have others who are on the other extreme, and they think more about the environment than they do about devotional service. And that's a problem there. And what we have to do is, like I said, that's why it's easier to do it sort of community by community. So we try to do it globally. No one's ever going to be satisfied. But I mean, the thing is, you do for yourself, you just do the best you can do, and understand that Bhumi is a personality. She's not, it's not just something that we can exploit and take whatever we want whenever we want it. No, it's she provides us with the things through Krishna. Krishna gives her that service and she performs it nicely. And so we should reciprocate like that. And so if we see it like that, then, naturally we're not going to triple bag our gallon of milk at the grocery store, or, we're not going to waste 7 gallons of gas just to go get a pair of shoes or something like that. We'll start taking less frequent trips to this. There's many things that we can do, but we shouldn't. In other words, the focus shouldn't be on that. The focus should be on Krishna consciousness. But at the same time, like I said, when I say these things, it looks like I'm going back and forth, and I'm not. It's just that what happens is we tend to want to choose one of those extremes, and we tend to say that our extreme is better than the other, because if my extreme is better, so no, I'm actually doing better for the planet. And the other one's like, well, no, I'm just doing everything for Krishna service. And the sad thing is that neither of them are doing it for Krishna service, because they're not seeing the other side. Right. And so, like I say, we just have to do what we can. And, we have to be responsible about it. Don't be foolish. Obviously, don't waste. Don't take more than you need. That's what got us into this mess in the first place. People taking more than they needed. Something's available. You take what you need and move on. Don't exploit. Because in the grand scheme of things, you have these people who are gung-ho about saving the planet, and they're trying to force people to do these extra things. Sure, their heart's in the right place, and the world would temporarily be nicer if people followed what they're saying. But we can't destroy the planet. There's no way. We don't have the power to. And thinking that we have the power to is just downright ludicrous. So we just have to keep focused on the real thing, Krishna consciousness. And all those side things will come if we focus on Krishna consciousness. But it has to be actual Krishna consciousness. It can't just be like waving the flag of Yukta Vairagya, and we're doing whatever we want to do, and then we're saying, oh, it's for Krishna. Sure, you're sort of using it in Krishna service, but are you actually Krishna conscious doing it? Or are you using that as an excuse to keep all of your toys, right? And so only we know what we're doing. Well, Krishna and we. Other devotees may think they know what each devotee is doing and judge in whatever way, but we can't determine that, and it's always a mixture too. It's not that someone's just completely, a rascal, or someone's completely a devotee. It's, we have a mixture of that. And so all of these issues, any issue that comes up, whether it's environmentalism or anything, we have to understand that we have to keep a very, very healthy balance, because if we do not, we will get lost in the details, either on one extreme or the other. And if we're lost in the details, then we're not going to make any spiritual progress. So if a program like recycling, for example, because you mentioned it, if that is revolved around respective bhumi, so if you wanted to start encouraging people in your temple to recycle, for example, then you have your recycle bins, and then you just say, please help us keep, respect Mother Bhumi, or keep her, like that. And if people do it, great. If people don't do it, then the people that are more enthusiastic about it can do the sorting later, and that's fine. But we shouldn't be too attached to it or expect everyone else to do exactly what we're doing, because what we're doing is not ideal either. We like to think it is, but it's not. There's always another step that we can go. And as long as we keep that in mind, then we're detached, because what are we looking at? We're looking at knowledge and detachment. So the knowledge part shows us of what's what, like what's good and what's bad. And then the detachment part is we're not in control. I'm not in control of what another person does. So I can suggest it, and I can facilitate, by putting these bins here. But if they either don't understand or just don't want to do it, and they put it in another, I still have the ability to, sort it myself. That's no problem, right? So in other words, as long as we're not getting attached to these things and thinking that they are the be all end all, and getting upset when other people aren't doing it, because that's not detached, that's completely attached. As long as we're doing it like that, then it's okay to do programs like this, of course. In other words, we can address details as long as we are also at the same time addressing the principle. And that's the most important part. Did that answer your question, Dronacharya, or did I just ramble?
It did. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Only just a kind of a follow-up to that, as you were talking,
Sure.
it made me think how the a lot of times our choices that we have to make, they also have a lot of times we make choices for convenience. And is it also, I guess, a an act of sacrifice when we make choices that are, I guess, no longer for our convenience, even though they may cost us more money? And a lot of times, at least upfront cost, environmental choices that are more environmentally friendly, usually there's more of an upfront cost, to such choices. Or there's a convenience component of it. Like riding your bike versus, driving to the store. There's a convenience of getting in your car and driving versus riding your bike. And or there's a convenience to many devotees in Philadelphia, we subscribe to getting milk at Gitanagari, because they have this ahimsa milk program that they run. And it's obviously there's a convenience to kind of just going to the store and picking up your milk versus having it only come once a week, and the arrangements that are made. But there's an element of sacrifice for an understandable higher purpose. Getting compostable plates rather than getting plates that are you can just pick up at the Acme or things like that. Is that sacrifice? Can that is made, is that like an offering to Krishna? Is that
Absolutely.
too broad of a statement to make?
No, that's not too broad of a statement. That it is because Krishna's supplying you with everything anyway. But my question then is, why not take it one step further? And so if you're willing to sacrifice that, then how about you have however many, like let's say 300 or whatever metal plates, and then someone sacrifices their time to clean all of those properly.
Yeah.
And then you only buy it once, and then you never have to do it again, and you just make sure nobody throws them in the garbage bin, and if they do, you pull them out. There, like I said, there's always another step. You can make that a step.
Yeah.
And that's true, that is it costs more, but it's better for the environment, so that's good. But it's still not the best for the environment, using something once and then throwing it away that was produced in a factory.
Yeah.
If it's a leaf, okay, sure, you took it off of the tree, you ate off of it, and then it's on the ground, that's no problem. But it's something that was it was produced, and then it was, so it was made in that factory, and then it had to be shipped somewhere, and then it's even the compostable plates, they're still not ideal, they're better.
Yeah.
But if we do that and then feel the sense of, okay, see, now we did the thing, and it's doing part of the thing, but it's not really the whole thing.
Right.
And so there's different ways to look at it, and we just have to understand that. But yeah, like you were mentioning, and that comes into the whole, when I was talking about the 4 human defects, the tendency to cheat, is that the convenience, like you said, you can get a Himsa milk, which gets delivered to Philly once a week. You can get that, but sometimes it's more convenient, like, oh, well, now I have too much milk, and 1 week, and then another week I don't have enough, so I just want to go to the store and grab what I need, sort of deal. And yeah, there's a convenience aspect to it, and what we'll do is we'll cheat and we'll justify our actions, and all sorts of things like that. But ultimately, that sacrifice is worth it. Krishna sees that you're going through, and it's not even that big of a sacrifice, honestly. To plan your meals accordingly, where you use up a specific amount of milk per week, that's not difficult. It's it takes a little bit of doing, but it's not that difficult. And then Krishna sees that, and he appreciates that, of course. And yeah, of course, he would rather you use milk that came from Krishna's. I mean, obviously they're all Krishna's cows, but the ones at Gitanagari aren't hooked up. Well, I guess they are hooked up to some machines, but they're the lower suction ones, from what I hear. But they're certainly treated way better than the cows that we're in the dairy farm of whatever, you get in the store. Now, yeah, obviously, Krishna likes the more connectivity, the better. Same with vegetables. You can buy vegetables in the store. Then you can also buy the same vegetables, but the organic version of them in the store. Or you can grow those same vegetables in your ground, right? And so the closer you get to Krishna, but it depends on the consciousness, though, because someone can do all of those things with the self-conscious desire to be known as the world's most natural living hermit or whatever like that, or he with the smallest carbon footprint ever, whatever. We can do all of these things in a self-centric way, and so that's the thing that we need to avoid, and that's the thing that we have to understand as devotees, as aspiring devotees, is we can't judge people by their details. Let's say someone's not into something that we're into, and we've made a connection with Krishna with the thing we're into, so we may judge, oh no, they're not doing that, that means they're not as advanced as I am. That's not necessarily true, because we don't understand what connections are being made. So if we judge by these details, then we're not getting the picture, because like I said, some people do the right thing for the wrong reasons, and some people do the wrong thing for the right reasons, right? And that's what principle is. That's what principle over detail means. And that's what Krishna is always teaching Arjuna, that it's not the detail, it's the principle. He goes, through the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna keeps coming up with these different details of why he shouldn't fight. Well, what about this? What about this detail? They're my family. What about this? Then, if I engage in this warfare, this ghastly warfare, then, there's whole chain effect that's going to happen. And then, but basically every time it came down to it, Krishna said, well, but it's my desire. You fight, you stop arguing with me, surrender unto me. This is what's going to happen. They're already dead. I've already killed them, everyone on this battlefield. So all you're doing is engaging in my service. So once we can do that, then we'll understand. And so we can't always see, well, we can't ever see, honestly, what people's intentions are. So we can't judge, based on if, someone, recycles, or if someone does this or does that, whether they're advanced in devotional service. That's not the litmus test. The litmus test is, are they always seeing Krishna in everything? And so so policies are sometimes very good, because we don't want to disrespect Bhumi Devi, but we should put it in into context, and do it properly. And definitely not force others. Like I said, the knowledge and detachment, they both have to be there. So it's good that we're knowledgeable, but we also have to be detached. And if we're that detached, then we won't mind washing 300 plates after every Sunday feast.
Right.
Not a big deal. Of course, why wouldn't I do that? Saving the planet. And then we'll see that, we'll see whether it was our consciousness or if we were Krishna conscious. Because if we were Krishna conscious in making that decision, it won't be a problem for us to wash all those plates. And Krishna will also send other volunteers to wash them, so it won't be a problem. But if it was self-motivated, if we were trying to become, the temple with the least carbon footprint or something like that, then we're going to quickly find out that washing 300 plates is a huge endeavor. And so if you're thinking it that way, then you're thinking I, not Krishna, Krishna, right? And so it really always comes down to that. So if we keep Krishna in the center, no problem, everything's going to go fine. If we keep ourselves in the center, even if we're following all of the right details that Krishna tells us to follow, if we don't have him in the center, nothing's going to work out. It may look like it's working out for a little while, but it's going to be chaos, turmoil. Nothing's going to be working out. And so that's what we always have to focus on. And that's why this is always coming up in every verse.
Thank you so much, Charachandra Prabhu, for that explanation.
Sure. I realize that when I give these explanations that sometimes they can be dissatisfying because people want to black and white, well, should I recycle or not, man? just tell me. And you can't answer like that because that's a detail. I can only answer on principle. And so whatever you do for Krishna. If you're going to recycle for Krishna. If you're not going to recycle, also do that for Krishna. But then you'll find out eventually that recycling for Krishna makes more sense than not recycling for Krishna. Right? And so it just automatically happens. So if we keep that in mind, then we're not trying to bend others' free will. We're just trying to help them along to Krishna. So that's always the focus. The focus shouldn't be anywhere else besides let's get everyone focused on Krishna. Everything else will work itself out.
Okay. We're here at 9:00. Again, a very informative class. When we touched on the environment, our relationship to Mother Bhumi, I think very helpful, and as well as different, from a lot of from especially in this chapter where things are going. So we thank you very much, Charachandra Prabhu. It's interesting in these purports, you get these opportunities to speak, and Srila Prabhupada, the nature of the purport today, is, led you to where you took the class today, and I think we all benefited from from such a class. So our gratitude to you, Charachandra Prabhu, especially joining us down in Kentucky, spending your mornings with us. We're very thankful.
My pleasure. Last night I was tempted to hand my class off to someone else because I'm recovering from a surgery I got last Tuesday, and it's going a little slower than I thought. And the mattress that I was sleeping on, it was an air mattress, and it sprung a hole. And so I was trying to figure all that out. And I actually called up a godbrother of mine to hand off the class. And he said, "Can you call me back in an hour?" And I said, "Yes." And then by then I had everything else situated. I got the bed fixed. And because I love doing this service, honestly.
I wanted to give you the class, Prabhu. The
nice
class. We are lucky to hear. We had a lot of information today, Mother Bhumi. And she has very much tolerance, Mother Earth. Whatever we do, and she's holding all of us. We're not all of us are devotees or something. Whatever we do, bad things also, she's tolerating everything.
She is, yeah.
That is really something.
We can learn a lot from her, and we should definitely always respect her in whatever way we can. Yeah.
Thank you very much for a nice class.
Thank you.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you very much. I found your class more interesting than your other classes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just so deep.
I'll get surgery more often then.
No. We don't want that.
No.
Take care of your health. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Charachandra Prabhu. This the information was again emotionally well balanced and spiritually like a meal. These aspects of respect and attentiveness and how we treat Mother Earth, relating it to everything is what you did, basically. How we treat each other, how we treat our spiritual lives. And in this way, we get well-balanced spiritual understanding. And your classes are always a healthy meal. I truly appreciate it. I mean, I enjoyed when you gave class in State College when you were like a teenager or whatever you were. I don't remember. You still look young. And up to now, I see the growth. I see the maturity. And that's like, one of the signs, are we maturing? and your perspectives on, of course, we can all say anything. But, we can't determine what any person is doing when we're not with them. So, an aspect of judging or, all these other things that relate to kind of the clanism of, I like you, you like me, and, you get this if you're with me. And, that's not Krishna consciousness.
No.
So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for the kind words.
Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Everybody have a wonderful Krishna conscious day ahead, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Krishna.